want to that person to join tomorrow morning, and I expect HR to find ways for to do the background checks or bypass background checks or suspend them for 15 days or 20 days and do a risk mitigation exercise, because there are situations where we have projects and we need people on the ground and they are ready to join you. And HR, if it has a mind of a business control audit person, then it becomes, a point for disagreement and tussles.
Right.
And I do appreciate the pressure on HR because there is audit on him as well. So, but it has to be more business friendly. That's what I want.
Okay, thank you, Humayun. What I understood कि जो आपका HR है वो ज़्यादातर bogged down रहा with the operational aspect and also firefighting इसको आपने कहा कि वो legal और बाकी जो aspects हैं, and also they couldn't meet your speed expectations कि अगर hiring है फौरन चाहिए तो they can put that place and they were
hiring भी retention के लिए we have sometimes a retention bonus, we have skill building, a leadership development program, a shadowing program, mentoring program. So all those have to be managed by HR.
Yeah, sure.
So we have a lot of programs. So कुछ हमने अपने लिए ही मुसीबत डाली है.
Okay, all right. I'll come to the HR. लेकिन आसिफ आप बताइए. And that doesn't have to be Lotte. जो आपकी previous assignments हैं.
In general, just comment, and with a lot of due respect to the HR professionals in this.
यार इतना डर के नहीं बोलो यार.
सच बोलेगा बोला. I think if you really want to know who's the head of HR in any company, it has to be the CEO. The CEO is really, his main job is running the manpower, the HR function of an organization. Besides being involved in, obviously, in all the operations, but when you transition from, and this is something that I personally had to do, and I still struggle with it, when you transition from a functional role to that of a chief executive, you sort of have to cut the ties, whatever you were doing as a functional leader, or you excelled as a salesperson, you excelled as an engineer, you excelled as an accountant. All of that is history. It's really when you become chief executive, it's about running HR. How well do you run HR is going to be is what is going to determine your results today, and has much long-term impact. And that's where I think any chief executive or board, their contribution is long-term. Coming to the hiring practices, I think again in general the change is just too rapid. There used to be a time when we were hiring. And I think I can say this safely about ICI, where my home was for 20 years, used to hire off a test. There would be testing systems. There would be a structured program that you would put any applicant through. There'll be a test. There'll be a first interview. There'll be a second interview. There'll be a third interview, and then finally the CEO gets to meet. I think we're finding that system, even at the entry level, may still be working for some organizations, but it has to be changed, it has to be modified. Today we are looking for, if somebody comes in with a CV of all A's, and super gold medals, he's done, great academic everything, and he's got the absolutely right experience, you really need to delve into much more. You need to find out what if any, if they've ever taken risks in life, for example. Have they failed? What have they done when they've failed? We are looking for reasons where this person is actually not just run of the mill. Where is he differentiated? And I think for any HR people who conduct these testings, who conduct first or second level interviews, our message is very clear that if you've got 10 CVs and they've got all A's, you've got to find the person who's actually very different, who sets himself as unique. So I think that's where that change is coming from, and if you're involved as a CEO into all your HR practices, you will make sure that is actually implemented.
Right, okay. Asif, did you answer that question? Have you been disappointed, bitten?
Many times.
Okay, right, okay.
Many times, but the important thing is the decision maker wasn't HR.
Right.
We've hired very wrongly at very senior levels. It has happened. And I think in any company it happens. But who is taking the decision? The decision is coming from chief executive, particularly for very, very senior people. And that's where if you go wrong in a very senior appointment, you really have major problems in the organization. Very long-term implications.
Okay.
I would also add to this. Selection of people, I mean, in many organizations, including mine, managers do a lot of gut feel as well, in addition to the other testing and other tools. And accidentally, we do hire good people, sometimes.
Okay. और ये सवाल वैसे मैं I'll come back to you कि is that the hiring done by you, मतलब your eyes, or is it the HR eyes? We'll come to that इंशाल्लाह. और जो आपने हमारे बीच में सवाल भी किया, जो HR business partnering का basically, और करीम आपने भी कहा था कि जो customer expectations है वो different होती हैं, और अगर HR से पूछा जाए या अपने लोगों से पूछा जाए तो वो different है. Now Rukhsana and Kareem, you are not obliged to respond to that, but I would ask you this: have you been victim of आप कहने neglect from your CEO in the past, or you have been very pleased with them or your leadership teams?
That's again a very burning question, Wali, and I think I would go with what Asif Saab said, and HR is what your CEO wants you to be. From all my experience, there have been CEOs and HR has done exceptionally well under them, and the same HR may not have done exceptionally well under some other CEOs, because it is how much time they want to invest in it, how HR active they are. If you have someone like these two gentlemen as CEOs, then the HR person is really lucky, because then he or she is able to do a lot more than the normal cases. Otherwise,
Rukhsana, that's only exterior, so don't don't be fooled by that.
No. But there have been instances where the blame comes onto HR for no fault of theirs. As they said, they have also found that the issue or the core problem may not be with HR. There is this balancing act. We just heard from Humayun Saab that at times these HR people are very involved into getting the forms right or the forms filled and whatever. And that is definitely a part of HR, but as HR, you have to balance. If the business needs someone tomorrow, you have to get that someone in tomorrow. Right. You can't be bogged down with the forms and the medical and the certificate clarifications and, the degree clarifications. No, you have to beat all that. But sometimes you're so focused on your administrative aspect that you're not able to meet the business partnering need of the business.
Okay. Kareem, very quickly.
On the bitten part, I think that HR also shares a similar feelings with the CEOs.
Is it tit for tat or something?
It has to be majority of your HR representatives.
Wow, so here's a politician, yeah? Okay. Right.
If I look at a very different perspective, I think that there have been business issues, there have been hiring decisions which go wrong, some go correct. And that will continue. We can't put a stop to that. What we need to realize is that whatever challenges that we face, one way of addressing that is to have these processes documented for all HR practices. If you have a proper flow chart, if it's process driven, then there's no issue because all stakeholders have given their input. For example, if it's hiring, let's say, for a position of a director or a vice president or a senior vice president, if the process is very clearly laid down, and those who have to be involved in making that hiring decision have given their input to that process, then there's no issue. Because then you put an end to that blame game that, maybe this came from the board or from a particular executive, or maybe this was the fault of HR. So there are ways of addressing that. So if the processes are clearly defined, I think that's one solution that we can adhere to. Regarding who heads HR, I think it's people. Right? We need to be closer to the people, and that's what is an important role of HR, to bridge that gap between the executive perception and his thinking versus what people think. Right? I know that sometimes if I look at the high cost of living, the inflation, lack of investment, all of that, and still the HR would come out and say that our payroll will double every 5 years because of the annual increment. Business will have only one term to say, and that is nonsense.
Okay.
Right? So how do we mitigate that? So I think that's where we need to come up with various initiatives where we as HR people can also be closer to business, understand their requirement that, for example, if I look at Western Europe, it takes 27 years to double their payroll. In Pakistan, especially in IT, I think it's 4.5 years. Right. So it's a huge difference.
Ji.
I think one important aspect is that HR has to play the conduit role between the people and the management. And for that, I feel at times our HR has been too inward looking. You know, we are more, as we just heard, bogged down with forms and processes and procedures. I mean, if it's hiring, we should be more concerned about getting the references checked or getting some idea of the person that we are about to hire, rather than, you know, getting fixated with the forms, etc. Similarly, if we are putting out a proposal on salary increment, we should exactly know what our competitors are doing. We should really know what the market is doing, how well it is moving, where it is moving, how it is moving, so that we can put up a logical case to the management. Okay. There is never been an instance where the management hasn't heard you if you've had enough logic and rationale behind what you have put up. If you just go and tell them that, well, people are very upset, they need a raise and we need to increase the salary, I don't think that's a good enough rationale.
Thank you. Rukhsana or Kareem, जो आपकी बहुत सारी examples आए, there seems to be a preoccupation with hiring and salary and compensation. लेकिन जैसे हुमायूं ने शुरू में कहा कि टैलेंट डेवलपमेंट या रिटेंशन, मैं उस तरफ भी आना चाहता हूँ कि जो एग्जांपल्स हैं हम सिर्फ हायरिंग से, यानी जो HR है उसको हायरिंग से बियॉन्ड क्यों नहीं देखते. आई विल कम टू दैट, बट लेट मी आस्क दिस यानी फ्रॉम आसिफ एंड हुमायूं कि जो व्हाट वाज आई गोइंग टू आस्क. ओके, लेट मी रिकॉल. ओके, हाँ, मैं जानना चाहता हूँ आसिफ एंड हुमायूं कि जो आपकी प्राइवेट कन्वर्सेशंस होती हैं विद HR व्हिच आर नॉट रियली इन पब्लिक स्फेयर, वो जो कन्वर्सेशन है HR आपसे क्या मांगता है, क्या चाहता है, या उनकी क्या प्रायोरिटीज लगती हैं? Is it like really petty issues or these are strategic business issues? Or your worries or their worries? Yeah.
Right. HR basically, I want HR to be an independent person who can sometimes, not always, sometimes disagree with me.
Humayun, can I say not the want part, but what actually happens, that part? Yeah.
Because HR has a different view than I have, and I depend on the HR to create. Because for me, creating the right morale in the company, avoiding where possible, not suppressing, but avoiding situations where speak-up programs, speak-ups would come up, or open doors would come up, which do not reflect nicely with management. There are at times heated discussions with HR, and there are times when I have to accept and submit to HR, because HR brings the knowledge and wisdom of what, at least in my company, what they are doing in other similar countries. So, and occasionally there are things that this is it. There is no flexibility in the country, we have to do it. Then we find ways to adapt to the situation. So there are heated arguments. HR expects me to protect him from the business verticals. In IBM, the hiring as well as the salary programs and the retention programs are largely driven by the 5 or 6 vertical lines of business, which are matrix oriented, which have their own budget, and the country may not have a 10% salary increase budget. So the services people may have a 4% budget, whereas the sales people may have a 7% budget, or somebody would have a 12% budget. This does create anomalies. And the manager within IBM is actually 50% HR manager. People do not go to HR for day-to-day activities or clarifications. The manager is supposed to be knowledgeable enough to handle the people. So in that context, there is a two-way dialogue, and there are situations where one has to compromise.
Okay, Asif.
For us, there are essentially two conversations that I have with our HR manager, who's sitting here, so he can correct me if I'm wrong. But really, the main conversation is about culture and the change and that is being driven. So it is HR's role to do a lot of analysis, to gather data, to look at things in